The HomeTech podcast is supported by you. To find out more, go to HomeTech.fm/support. This is the HomeTech podcast for Friday, December 10th. From Sarasota, Florida, I'm Seth Johnson.
And from Denver, Colorado, I'm Jason Griffin. How you doing, Seth?
Pretty good. Jason, I'm broke. I'm broke now.
Yeah?
There's no money left for Christmas.
Blew the budget?
Blew it. It's all gone. No deals. All the deals were taken. Amazon. I should have bought Amazon stock is what I should have done. That would have been the smart thing.
No kidding. What'd you get? What'd you pull the trigger on?
Well, I've got sitting next to me on the desk here a beautiful Apple HomePod in white.
All right. Getting prepared for the, what's it called? The graveyard.
For the graveyard, yeah. It's there. For a graveyard product, it certainly works nice and does look nice.
What was the sale price on that one again?
$188 is what it got down to,
wow.
Which is incredible. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So that was over at...
That's really low.
Yeah.
That I think is lower than what it was when we talked about it last week, I feel like.
It was. Last week, they were hovering at like 120, and I think that they said they were going to go down. I've seen it at 110. 220, sorry. And then, for Black Friday, of course, and Cyber Monday, they got down to the 188 price and limited quantities, yada, yada, yada. I was like, well, that is just too tempting. So I bought two.
You bought two. Look at you, big spender.
Yeah, I fell for it.
Like
well, it. These are supposed to be pretty good in stereo pairs. So I'm going to try and set it up in a stereo pair. And then that should be fun.
Yeah.
I can connect my computer to them and make it do it that way. So it should be fun.
Well, they're certainly a far cry better than like an Echo or a Google Home for the most part, unless you get up into I think Google Home has some bigger models that might compete, but
right.
Either way, yeah, I've heard the HomePods, and they're pretty good speaker. Speaking of kind of a speaker centric episode here, we'll tee it up a little bit more later. But we had Bronson Gannon on from Polk, so we're kind of in a speaker state of mind here. And yeah, HomePods are. I don't own one, but they're definitely a good speaker, and that's a really compelling price. These were what, $349 when they first came out?
They are still $349. Well, I think they were $399 maybe, and they dropped to $349. But yeah, they're still $349 if you buy them at the Apple Store today. But the question is, like, how long will they remain at the Apple Store, and how long will Apple continue to support them? So that's the big question. That's me. What about you? I saw a picture of the back of a car just loaded up with TV screen.
That's right. So I talked about it on the show last week, and I was originally conceiving for down here in my office where I work. It's also doubles as a guest suite when we have guests in town. And I was thinking maybe a smaller size TV, and then I had started looking at the 50-inch TCL that I think was $249, if I recall correctly, is what we talked about last week. And that was the one that I had kind of set my sights on. And when I sat down to purchase it on Black Friday, I went online and started looking around, and I realized that the 55-inch was only $30 more. So for an additional $30, I could get a 55 down here. So what originally started as me thinking about something in the smaller kind of 40-inch range or so, quickly became a 55-inch TCL that I picked up for the basement down here. It's a 4 series, so it's not the 6 series like I have upstairs. But I've been really happy with the 6 series, and so they've built up some brand equity with me. And of all the deals out there, I felt like a 55-inch TCL. It's the 4 series. It was $279. Felt like it was a great deal. I have to admit, Seth, you know how things move around my house. It's still sitting in the box.
I still see it in the box behind you, right? Yeah. I was going to say we both got upsold this year. I bought 2 HomePods, and you bought 5 inches more worth of TV than you thought you were going to.
That's right.
That's how they get you.
So pretty excited about that. And the money to offset it was thanks to you, because I also had my eye on the MyQ smart garage door opener, which when we talked about it last week was hovering around the $30 mark, I think, which very, very inexpensive. But I don't know how exactly you came across it. You, over the weekend or on Black Friday, I think slacked me the deal, Amazon Lightning deal on the MyQ garage door opener for $17.
Crazy.
Which is just insane. Fire sale price. So I jumped on that, picked one of those up. You will not be shocked to know that it is not installed yet.
I'm not really that shocked.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
But I'll get around to it eventually.
Well, I guess that's the holiday season for you. That it's all about finding those.
Those were the highlights. Yeah, those were the highlights. We picked up a couple of Amazon Fire tablets for the kids. They've had some kids Fire tablets for several years now that have served us really well, but have gotten a little long in the tooth, and so we thought it'd be time to upgrade them this year. So we picked up a couple of those on the technology front as well.
Very cool. Yeah, I can't say that I got very much more technology-wise to brag about, but the HomePods, I think that's a pretty big investment in a stereo system. It's more than I think I've ever paid.
Well, and you killed two birds because now you've got them ready for the graveyard.
They're ready, and I'm not going to throw away my Mackie monitors that I have here on the desk. I'll just have to keep them.
There you go.
And box them up somewhere. And then when the HomePods die their slow, painful death from Apple, or just maybe one day they just won't work anymore, I will just switch back over to the Mackies and use stereo monitors again.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. All right. Well, let's shift gears and get into it here. I alluded to this a second ago. We do have an interview this week and had a lot of fun. Went outside of where we don't go into home theater and audio and speakers all that much on the show, but I really find it an interesting technology, and when I do have opportunities to speak with people who really know their stuff when it comes to speakers, I always come away from it learning a thing or two, and this conversation was no exception. We had Bronson Gannon on. He's the global brand manager over there at Sound United. Specifically, he works on the Polk and Boston Acoustics line. So they came on to primarily talk about a new Polk Legend series of speakers, which you'll enjoy hearing about. But we also got into really some of the more fundamentals of speaker design and really how to think about what makes a good speaker good. And I really enjoyed the conversation, so we look forward to sharing that. Be sure to stay tuned. But before we get into that, Seth, what do you say we jump into some HomeTech headlines?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, speaking of steals and deals, the dust has settled, and this was the biggest biggest shopping weekend of the year. Excuse me. Early data here shows that Cyber Monday broke records with total sales reaching an estimated staggering number here, 9.4 billion with a B. This is according to a report from Adobe Analytics. It shows that sales during the online shopping frenzy were up an estimated 19% from last year, so almost a 20% gain. Last year was a 7.9 billion in sales. During the peak shopping hours of Cyber Monday, which Adobe Analytics pegs as between 8 p.m. It must be 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Pacific, consumers spent an average of $11 million per minute.
That's funny.
So I don't know if that's 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time, so maybe there's just a 1 hour window there. I'm not sure, but $11 million per minute. That kind of puts that $9.4 billion number in perspective.
Yeah, no kidding. It was funny, Jason. I really didn't realize that there was a Cyber Monday thing. I've heard that before, but I thought it was like a joke or something. I don't know. I didn't really think much of it. I knew Black Friday had kind of like creeped out over the weekend, and even like into the previous week, but I really didn't know Cyber Monday was this big of a deal. I guess it is.
It's a thing.
Yeah,
it's a thing. Yeah, Amazon. There was a separate story I saw that Amazon said it was their biggest shopping day in history. There was not any specific sales numbers in that story that I read, but one interesting thing they did say was the top 10 best-selling computer products on Amazon were all some iteration of the Fire tablet, including Kids Edition and Fire HD 8 tablet. So I know they had like the 7, which is the older model, on sale at one point for like $30. So these things were apparently selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, you got to watch out for that. I noticed that when I was shopping on Amazon, is that they were selling really good deals on like a 2018 model of something or the previous model of whatever was latest. So it almost caught me a couple of times where I'm like, oh, this is a really good deal. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh, but that's the old thing. Like nobody wants the old thing. I want the new thing.
Right.
So it's something you do have to watch out. I really wasn't, there wasn't much on Amazon I found compelling this year. But I suspect that's because I'm not in like the TV market. From what it looked like, literally everything TV related, Sony, Samsung, everybody had a sale going on for TVs, which looked great. TCL. So yeah, I I think this time of year is a pretty good time to pick up a commodity priced TV.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually one last comment on this, and then we'll move on. This story also talked about a growing trend. Apparently there's an acronym for this: buy online, pick up in store, BOPIS. I guess that's a thing. But that caught my eye because actually I did end up doing that. The TCL that I purchased, ended up purchasing that from Target. So they had the same price as Amazon at Target, but I was able to go pick it up locally that same day we were going to be in the area anyways. So I really like that. With some of these bigger purchases, it's nice to be able to just go get that instant gratification and put your hands on them right away.
Yeah, that's we use that quite a bit for like going to Target or something like that. They've offered that service for a long time. You just walk up to the front, get what you need, and walk out. There's no
That's right.
wandering around the store spending more money than you need.
That's right. Yeah, it's kind of a nice middle ground between online shopping and traditional retail.
Yeah. Well, we've known for a while that Plex is getting into the streaming business. In September, it announced that it had teamed up with Warner Brothers to deliver an ad-supported content by the end of 2019, with the promise of more partnerships to come. And that now has come to pass. As for today, thousands of, quote, free movies, TV shows, extreme sports film, music documentaries, Bollywood musicals, have been unlocked inside the Plex app. This sounds great. I'm off to watch Bollywood for the rest of the night.
I thought you would like that. Thought you might like that one. Seth, is an audio-only show. Nobody can see your dance moves.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, so this is available now in more than 200 countries. Available to anyone with a free Plex account. There's no paid subscriptions available. So this is a completely ad-supported service at this time, and yet another offering. So definitely something to go take a look at if you're looking for free options. I know a lot of people don't mind that ad-supported model, so this might be a good option for that. Shifting gears here, on Tuesday, Sony is rolling out firmware updates for several TV lines that run Android TV, upgrading them to Android 9 Pie. The update adds several new features, including Dolby Atmos support and, perhaps most relevantly, Seth, for us, HomeKit and AirPlay 2 support. Back in January at CES, several TV manufacturers announced this. This was one of the big stories at the previous CES that we talked about quite a bit. This HomeKit and AirPlay 2 support on TVs. Most of those announced products have either shipped or had firmware updates already. Sony's been a little bit slower than other companies like LG, Vizio, and Samsung, but they do have this firmware update rolling out now.
I find they're a little bit slower in getting onto this, but they are one of the, I think just about everybody has back-ported the AirPlay 2 into their older models, their 2018 models. I know LG is the lone, the single standing company that has not loaded AirPlay 2 onto their TVs for their 2018 TVs. So the 2019s have it, 2018s don't, unfortunately. So, but that's pretty cool. That I really like it when you can get an update on a product that you paid a premium price for. I mean, these are not, Sony is not a cheap TV. The XBR Z9F, the XBR A9F, as well as some other XBR models. Those are not inexpensive TVs by any means. And seeing those get software updates that add functionality, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a pre-holiday message to consumers, an FBI field office is warning that smart TVs may be vulnerable to intrusion. In addition to outlining how new advanced technological features risk allowing television manufacturers and app developers to snoop on consumers, the Bureau says malicious cyber actors can also take control of unsecured smart TVs and potentially wreak havoc on unsuspecting owners. I got this story, Jason, not because I read about it, but because my wife texted me and said, they're breaking into TVs and now they can hear everything we say. Make sure you fix this before I get home.
That's funny. Yeah, take care of this. I think a lot of people are, jokes aside, a lot of people are like that. Like they're looking for somebody to take care of this problem. And there are certainly opportunities for that. In fact, we'll talk about Best Buy Total Tech Support. And I know at One Vision, we're getting ready to roll out a network security offering for consumers. So we're pretty excited about that. It's a growing trend, growing area of awareness. But, thankfully there are some things you can do to simply protect yourself. And we've talked about that numerous times on the show. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but the story did mention, the FBI talking about these sorts of simple things like changing default passwords Understanding that you need to do updates when they become available. All of these things that sound very obvious to a lot of everyday consumers might not think about that. So there are some things that that people can do to make sure that they stay protected.
Thought this was interesting. The when at the low end risk of the spectrum, they can change channels, play with the volume, show your kids inappropriate videos. The FBI warning states, in a worst case scenario, they can turn on the bedroom TV's camera and microphone and silently cyber stalk you. So yeah, I think that's some head turning, things to see come from an FBI memo, right? Like it's not something that we want to have happen. When my wife got home, like this TV, it doesn't have a microphone. I mean, it's connected to the internet. I do updates on it all the time, but it doesn't have a microphone and it doesn't have a camera, so we don't have that to worry about, at least.
Right. Yep. And they talked about, if you're not using the smart features on the TV, which a lot of people don't. Like I know ours upstairs, we use the Apple TV for that. Unplug, take it off the network, right? Like
take it
that's
off.
Something a lot of people may not think about either. You don't have to put it on the Wi-Fi or plug it into the network if you're not using those features. So, that's another very seemingly obvious thing that people can do that some might not think of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we know from TV manufacturers themselves, the reason that our TVs cost, no offense, Jason, the reason they cost $200 or $300 for Cyber Monday is because they spy on you. They want to know what you're watching. They hash out everything that you do and report back to their ad databases, basically, to figure out what you like watching on TV and how long you watch TV and all that good stuff. I mean, that exists. So if you don't need to have those types, you don't need to have those features, just leave it unplugged from the network completely. Guess what? If you leave it unplugged from the network, you don't even have to do the updates on it.
That's right.
You don't need them.
Problem solved.
Exactly. So it's one less maintenance routine thing that you have to do. But yeah, while there are advantages, clearly there are disadvantages to having that as well. So we all can't have. It's one of those things that it's a double-edged sword, right? Because we're gonna have a situation where there are bad actors, and then we also have the situation where there are good actors, like Plex, for example, offering all those videos and everything. So you can't have one without the other, unfortunately.
That's right. We got Bruno in the chat room. Good to see Bruno joining us, and he said, we're worried about TVs now, and we've had mobile devices in our pocket for 10 years, and it's a good point. Like a lot of these concerns are things that have been around for a while. There's perhaps more awareness now that more and more devices are being connected.
Right.
But a lot of these best practices, like not using default passwords and always making sure you do your updates. I mean, these are things that have been relevant for a really long time.
It's funny, side, kind of same conversation, but a funny conversation I had with Ashish over at Cavo during Cedia. He was showing me the little keyboard thing that I have a video of where it types out what you're searching for really quickly on the Apple TV. And I kind of looked at him. I said, so you can type in passwords too? He's like, oh yeah, we know what your passwords are. I'm like, how do you know? He's like, if we can see the pixels, we know what the passwords are. Do you think your TV doesn't know what your passwords are? Your TV can see your passwords. I'm like,
right.
Yeah, I guess it can. It knows what letters are. It knows where the pixels are. It knows what color they are. They can see the passwords.
Yeah.
Kind of wild to think about.
Unique passwords.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter at that point.
Well, right. But it's one thing for your password to get compromised if it's used for one thing. It's another if you use it for your banking and your email and your, everything else under the sun.
Absolutely.
Which unfortunately a lot of people still do. So anyways, all right, let's shift gears here. Moving on to our next headline. Wyze has announced its latest smart device on the mobile site Tuesday, a smart lock. Only a small number of Wyze locks will be made available through its early access program, with shipping not expected to begin until after Christmas. An official launch is set for sometime in February, the company says. The Wyze lock has all the smart features you would expect, including Alexa, Google Assistant, and Zigbee support, with voice unlocking via the voice assistants coming in early 2020. The lock runs on 4 AA batteries, which the company says will last about 3 months of regular use.
Very cool. I'm shocked, I guess. I mean, this seems like it's complementary to their their line of cameras. And what do they have that scale out yet? The weigh scale, where you can weigh yourself? I'm not sure, but like,
Yeah.
it seems complementary to the product line that they have. And I'm shocked at the price. I mean, it looks really good. It looks like it's really well done for $89, $90. And I'm sure we'll see it less, in the future.
Yeah. It's, the story says device by device, Wyze is steadily putting downward price pressure on the smart home market. They've already been successful in doing that by any measure with its most popular product, the Wyze Cam, which I've picked up a few for my house, and at $25, $30, it's insane what you get for that price. So this again will be at $89 and continues to put downward pressure on the market. I don't know. I still have my questions about the long-term viability, but who knows?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see where that company goes. Certainly, I don't know how they would. They've got to be able to come up with some kind of service that they can offer on top of this, $89 product to help subsidize that price point, because that seems really low.
Yeah, it says it requires no subscription to use and has built-in door position detection. So it can tell you if it's locked or unlocked. But yeah, currently no subscription required. I know on my cameras you don't need a subscription, but I have seen them, I saw some emails come across for enhanced features. So for example, they've got motion detection that'll grab a 5-second clip. If you want to get they call it full motion detection, where it'll store the whole clip for as long as there's motion in the frame, then it costs I don't remember. I mean, it was ridiculously cheap. It was like $1 a month or something.
Right. Well, I mean, and they have Wyze has a security system either out or coming out soon as well. So, I mean, this ties in directly. I mean, it could just be something as simple as an accessory to that, right? And maybe there's no subscription for the smart deadbolt, but once you get involved with a bigger system, I'm not familiar with their product line completely, but I think it would make sense for them to start selling something on top of it to help subsidize these low prices, because $89 is insanely low compared to I think the quick set I have over there is what, $200. So we're talking magnitude lower here. This is wild to see.
It is.
So Best Buy reported strong Q3 2020 financials, driven in part by more than, Jason, are you sitting? Yes, I can see you're sitting down. 2 million subscribers to its Geek Squad Total Tech Team support. That is wild. The $200 a year program was launched in May 2019 and drove the company's services division revenues up 12.9% for the quarter. Wow. Overall, Best Buy domestic revenue for the quarter was $8.96 billion, up 2.4% versus last year, and Wall Street reacted favorably to the news, with Best Buy stock up more than 10% during the day. That is incredible. That a $200 a year program has 2 million subscribers.
Yeah.
That is wild. Wow.
Yeah, it is really an interesting story to watch, as you can imagine, at One Vision and amongst, our network of partners, both our network of integrators, I should say, both that are partners and those that we just sort of interact with at industry events and other various channels. What Best Buy is doing here with Total Tech Support is massively interesting. And the success is really validating. I think that ultimately, they talk about in the story, this is from CE Pro, and they quote Corey Berry, who's Best Buy CEO, says, "We are excited about our progress and opportunities as we execute on our building the new blue strategy," which is their sort of overarching corporate strategy, designed to develop deeper relationships with our customers and uniquely position us over the long term. And I think that really hits the nail on the head. And if you take any time at all to go study what Best Buy has done over the last decade or more, it's been an incredible turnaround story. And for them to be doing this in the day and age of Amazon and e-commerce in general is really impressive. And a lot of the cornerstone of their strategy is really centered on deepening that relationship. And I think there's a lot that home technology professionals can take away from that in terms of shifting from a very transactional, strictly project-focused mentality to one that doesn't throw out the project mentality entirely, but also embraces the need for this longer-term, comprehensive technology management that many consumers are clearly looking for.
Oh, absolutely. And there was one thing that was when I was selling alarm systems. I'm shivering right now. Back in the day, like there was one thing that came up with price, and there were a couple of guys in town that were like, I don't know, $20 a month for their alarm security system, and then we were looking at it like, well, you can sell it up to like $49, $50 a month is what ADT and all the big guys are doing. So like, if the big guys are able to sell it for that without anybody turning a head, like, why wouldn't you? Like, the big guys in this case are Best Buy, and they're proving that this could be done. Definitely take a look at what they're doing and see if there's any way that you can weave that into your product offering as a business. It totally makes sense to do that.
Right.
It is clearly an opportunity that, I mean, is what is that number? $200 times 2 million. So that's $400 million a year for Best Buy. That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep. The story also mentions that it says the service continues to get strong reviews and members spend more and are twice as likely to use other services than non-members.
There you go.
I think that's an important point as well is, it's not Best Buy for now. And one other point we'll talk about is they're looking at possibly expanding this, but for now, it's really kind of a one-size-fits-all. It's total tech support. You buy it or you don't. But they have other services as well. And I think the parallel there for home technology professionals is that you can start with a tiered structure and you can have some sort of a membership service offering that is relatively basic but provides maybe something like guaranteed access to 24/7 support, things of that nature. And then you can scale it up from there. And if Best Buy's success is any indication, then getting customers to at least start to opt into these membership and ongoing service programs is really just a foot in the door. So you don't have to swing for the fences and do it all on your first sort of entry-level plan. You can get started small and then look to scale up from there over time.
Right.
Which, by the way, is what, Best Buy, the one last thing I wanted to mention on this story is that Barry, the CEO, also talked about total tech support with networking. And apparently Best Buy is piloting this program. It includes setup and installation of routers, parental controls to manage devices on the network, subscription to Microsoft Office 365, 1 terabyte of cloud storage, along with all of the other total tech support benefits. So you can see them very clearly looking to scale up on their early successes.
Yep, and that's a smart place to be. All the tools are there now. Like, all the tools have been developed to be able to do that remote tech support with networking and figure out. I mean, there's a lot of better devices that are out now too. Like, networking is pretty solid these days. I mean, when your choice is like between like an Eero or a Google Wi-Fi, like, you're getting a pretty good product, right?
Right.
So like, it's a really smart thing for them to do to kind of go ahead and insert themselves into that marketplace. Sounds like a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. We'll include a link to that in our show notes, along with all of the other stories that we've talked about on this week's show at HomeTech.fm/283. While you're there, don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter. We'll send you show reminders and other occasional updates about all the great things going on here in the world of home tech. Once again, that link is HomeTech.fm/283.
And don't forget, you can join us in the chat room live Wednesdays, starting sometime between 7:30 and 7 and 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can find out more at HomeTech.fm/live.
All right, absolutely. Well, Seth, what do you say? Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our interview. Once again, we had Bronson Gannon on. He's the global brand manager for Polk and Boston Acoustics over there at Sound United. He joins us to talk all about not only their new Legend line of speakers, but also speaker design in general, and what are some of those fundamental and really important things that you should understand if you're going out there and evaluating speakers. So we hope you enjoy the conversation here with Bronson Gannon. Hey, Bronson, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, guys. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. We're excited to have you and jump into a conversation about speakers. It's not a topic that we touch on as much as I would like on the show. I certainly appreciate a good speaker, and I'm looking forward to really learning about not just the Legend speaker, which is the primary thing we're going to talk about, but also just Polk's philosophy and really what I, as a consumer, and everyone else out there in the audience really should be thinking about when we start to take a look and think about speakers. But before we jump in to all of that, why don't you give our listeners just a quick personal introduction and talk about some of your background as well as your current role today over there at Polk?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned earlier, my name's Bronson. I've been with Polk Audio for about 2 years now. I'm the global brand manager for Polk Audio. And prior to this, I was actually in a completely different industry. I was in sporting goods industry. Then I decided to shake it up a little bit because I got really bored, and I've really love audio. Turntables has been my deal forever. And then I was just finally said, I'm leaving sports. I'm done with it. I need to switch it up. And I got this job at Sound United underneath Polk Audio. And ever since then, my brain has just been getting destroyed by amazing speakers. So it's really cool. I mean, I feel very blessed. I can come into work and I can listen to music all day at work and test out speakers and find out the breaking points, and I can do all that kind of stuff. So it's a blessing. It's been a ton of fun over the last 2 years.
Awesome. And I would imagine as the global brand manager, you're a busy guy. Talk about what kind of a day-to-day, if such a thing exists for you. What does that look like for you?
Oh, good God. That's a great question. I'm still trying to figure out what my day-to-day is too. Like you said, there's no day is the same over here. I mean, as you know, with Polk Audio, we have component speakers, which is this Legend line, and then we also have sound bars, and we have all-in-one. So my day varies greatly. I have calls, let's say, with China super late in the evening. I have calls with Australia in the afternoon. I have calls with Europe in the early morning, trying to figure out exactly what their markets are needing, how I can figure out a way to help put those products into their market, and then also market it as well too to the different regions. And as everybody knows, China is very different than Germany. So it's one of those things where nothing is the same every day, but it's a grind constantly. It's a solid 12 to 14-hour day every day.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like that keeps things interesting, and I can tell that you're and how that's all put together. Give us a short history of Polk and what do you feel like makes the company really special?
Yeah, absolutely. So Polk actually started in the early 70s out in Baltimore, Maryland. And it started with a gentleman named Matthew Polk, who the company is clearly named after. And they ended up going into this massive Victorian house in Baltimore, and they started just making a speaker workshop in there. Their passion for life was audio, and they wanted to make an amazing speaker that people could actually afford to purchase, as opposed to back in the day where people were making Bose speakers. I believe, what was it, the Bose 702s or something like that. And it was like a $10,000 speaker. So back in the 70s, that's a ton of money. So what we want to do as Polk, and what it started as and what it's morphed to today, is we want to make amazing sounding speakers for everybody that is able to afford it. So our goal is to make speakers with legit materials that are natural, nothing that's crazy exotic. So you won't find any aluminum, there won't be any carbon fiber, there won't be any beryllium on any of our speakers, because when you have those products on your speakers, the price gets shot up dramatically. And we don't want to do that to our consumers. We want to make sure that you're able to enjoy the same great audio that we're able to enjoy.
Very nice. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the newer speakers you have coming out, the new Legends series. This kind of Legends is a pretty good name because Polk has some pretty legendary speakers, right? The Monitor 10s, SDAs, RTAs,
Yep.
Going way back.
Yep.
SRTs,
LSIs, like we went all the way back, man.
So let's talk about the Legend. What is it? It seems like when I looked at it, just from a cursory glance at the Legend, it seems like that heritage is ending up in the Legend. The Polk heritage is coming in, and it looks, I mean, the speakers almost look like something that you would see, a modern version, of course, but something you would see come out of that 70s workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the stuff that you think that is with 70s within Polk, and especially the SDA, is the dual tweeters, the two transducers that you have on the top. And that's going to be in our flagship line called the L800. Now, for everybody out there listening, the L800 goes for $6,000 a pair.
Nice.
I know. You think that it's crazy high, but it's not. You need to go and listen to these speakers. And once you sit down and listen to these speakers, you'll understand what I'm talking about. First time I listened to these speakers, I started crying. I'm not even kidding. There was one song they played, Ave Maria, and it hit me, and I was transported into the actual opera house where this was recorded live, and I felt like I was there, and it was just something totally crazy. But sorry, I digress. Let's go back. So, talking about the actual Legend series themselves. So we have seven speakers with us in this line. We have the L800 that I just spoke about, which is our flagship speaker with our SDA technology, which is our legendary technology. Like what we did there. Then we have a traditional stereo tower called the L600. We have a center channel for every home theater need that you could possibly have. We have 2 bookshelves. And for the first time ever, we have an Atmos module that we're able to drop into the tower speakers. So that's both into the SDA and into the typical regular stereo tower speaker.
Can you, we touched on it a couple times, but let's talk a little bit about that, the SDA, the stereo dimension array.
You really want to get into it right in the middle, don't you? Let's go.
Yeah, it's getting the meat. Yeah.
Let's
We talked about this a little bit before we started, is that like these speakers are, it's a podcast, we're an audio medium, but like we're trying to describe something that you really have to be in front of to hear, because everybody who is listening to this isn't listening on these Polk speakers. They're listening on whatever they have in front of them. So we've got to get in and talk about the juicy bits here.
Let's break it down. Let's get into brass tacks, boys. So the way you're listening to stuff right now, if you don't have headphones on, you are getting an inherent distortion with stereo listening no matter what. And it's called interoral crosstalk. And interoral crosstalk is when you're sitting in front of your 2-channel setup and you have your right speaker on the right and the left speaker on the left. And you press play and Pink Floyd starts playing. You're like, hell yeah, that sounds great. But what you don't realize is that the sound from the right speaker is going to your right ear, but it is also going to your left ear. That is called interoral crosstalk. And the same thing is happening on the left speaker to the left side of your face as well, too. So what we have done with SDA, which stands for Stereo Dimensional Array, we have created a crosstalk cancellation signal. So if you look at our speakers at the very top, you see that we have 2 transducers up there. We have 2 tweeters and we have 2 cones, 2 woofers, right? So when you position them in the room, the inside of those transducers, that's called our stereo array. And those are the good signals that we want. That's the right signal to the right ear and the left signal to the left ear. The outside of those transducers, it's called our dimensional array. And that's what sends the cancellation signal to so let's say your right side. The right speaker will send the cancellation signal to your right ear to cancel out the sound that's coming from the left speaker. Does that make sense?
It does.
Clear as mud?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because you start to think about the physics of listening, and these things are obviously measured in tiny fractions of a second, but I have to imagine that the audio hitting one ear is hitting it also possibly even a fraction of a second later to the other ear. I would imagine that maybe is that part of what causes
Jason, that's a great question.
Yeah, like what is it about that this cancellation signal that actually then from a human perspective makes it sound better? Absolutely.
So what you just described was a phase delay that you would get within that as well too. And it's a head shadow effect. So it crosses your head. So when you cancel out these signals, what will happen was that you will get the recording as it was created from the actual sound engineer itself. So one of the big songs that we use during our demos is Time by Pink Floyd. And at the beginning, like 3 seconds in, all the alarm clocks are going off and you're listening to it regularly. Like if you're in headphones, you're like, wow, this sounds great. Everything's really close to my head. And you listen to it on stereo channel speakers, you're like, wow, this is great. It's a good sound image, right? If you were to sit down and listen to it on these L800 speakers, it would take up the entire wall. It would go from floor to ceiling and it would go wall to wall, and you would have precise imaging on each of the alarm clocks that are going off. And you'll be able to feel the depth and the height and the width that we're able to give you. And that's what Pink Floyd wanted to give you. So it's one of those things where you're actually able to listen and witness the music or your favorite movie or your TV show, how it was meant to be. Like you will be there.
Yeah. And that is one of the big things. I again, certainly appreciate a good speaker. I do not consider myself an audiophile or an expert in speakers, but one thing that I, even as a relative Luddite when it comes to this stuff, one thing that I have noticed is that when I do sit in front of a good pair of speakers, that you just do get a lot more of that imaging, like you said, and the depth, and you can feel the spread and the sound stage a little bit more, a lot more in some cases. And it sounds like this SDA technology is really designed to even take that to the next level. So pretty interesting stuff, and I'd love to get an opportunity to sit down and listen to that someday. Let's shift gears, because that's obviously one big component of the speakers, but there's a lot else going on here, and it'll also, I think, lead to some interesting conversations about other aspects of listening and how these speakers are engineered. So I know for the mid-range, you've got the technology called turbine cone. So talk about that specific technology and relate it just in general to, how you guys think about conveying that important mid-range of the audio signal.
Yep, absolutely. And as you said, the mid range is extremely important. That's probably about 70% of what you guys are hearing, anyways, is all the mid range stuff. So what you want from a good mid range is, for the cone, you want it to be a stiff cone that's super light, that's able to move back and forth really quickly to give you a more precise mid range. So normally what you have to do is you have to invest in exotic materials like carbon fiber and stuff like that. But what we've done is we've stayed with the typical paper polypropylene cone. But what we've done is, if you look at it, we have those little bridges on there, and we call those turbine pedals. And what they do is they actually increase the rigidity of the cone without adding any additional mass. And the way that we're able to do that is by injecting aerated polypropylene in the middle of that, so we can adhere it together. So think of it like a sandwich. So on the outside of the sandwich, we have polypropylene. On the middle of the sandwich, which is like your meats and your veggies and all the fun stuff, that's our aerated polypropylene, which is the adhesive that helps keep this together. And on the outside, you have the crispy bun, and that's what's going to be our turbine cone, our turbine ridges that you see there. So we're able to do two things within one little motor structure. We're able to increase the rigidity, and we're also able to increase the damping. So with that gives you faster motor, faster cone. It gives you more damping materials, which is great, which absorbs resonances. And you're also able to get clear mid-range sounds without any sort of distortions. And that's the turbine cone. And the cool thing is that that's not just going to be in the L800 speaker. It's going to be in the entire Legend line that we have. And that's another cool thing that I kind of want to touch on real quickly, is that the entire line's timbre matched. Whatever you get in the little baby bookshelf speaker will be the same componentry that you get in our big L800 flagship speaker. It'll be maybe formed a little differently, but it's all the same technology. And that's what we wanted to make sure that our consumers are able to get. We want them to have a stellar, awesome experience with just our bookshelves or even the L800s. So from 1,200 to 6,000, we want you to have a great experience. And the way that we thought you could do that is by giving everything in the line the best possible Polk products that we could make.
Very cool. That is really neat. A lot of times you don't see the timbre matching coming in until like you're paying $6,000 for each speaker you have around the room.
Exactly.
One quick question came up while you were talking about the turbine cone. Why is the rigidity important? Is that just because it needs to be a cone to move sound, so to speak, or why is rigidity important in a cone like that?
So the less rigid it's going to be, is you're going to have ripples within your cone, because your cone's moving so quickly. So you're going to have different spots of your cone that's probably going to potentially, quote unquote, break down or have waves in there. And when you're creating waves within the cone itself, it's creating more distortions. And the more distortions will come out and they'll alter the sound, obviously. And that's something that we don't want to do. So the more rigid it is, the less, let's say, morphing will happen within the cone itself. So the stronger it is, the tighter the sound waves you'll get, and the more distortion-free music you'll be able to listen to.
Cool. Well, appreciate you elaborating on that. I was curious about that as well, from just from a higher level perspective. What is it about the rigidity about mid-range cones that make rigidity important? So that makes a lot of sense. Shifting gears here, and down to that ever important bass and lower frequency range that really rounds out the sound. I know you guys have, and everybody likes that. Even those of us who don't know as much about speakers, it's always a fun thing to check out. So talk about, you guys have an enhanced power port on the speaker, and talk about that technology. And again, what is it about your design philosophy that makes that bass, better?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I get into that, I want to tell you guys a quick story. We were at the New York Audio Show 2-3 weeks ago, And we were in the room testing out our songs and making sure that the room was acoustically friendly and all that kind of stuff. And I love to play this one song. I know you're probably going to judge me for saying it, but when I play Partition by Beyonce on these speakers and I crank the volume up to, like, let's say 65, 70%, and within the first 10 seconds, you have the lowest, deepest bass drop you could have. We actually rattled the room, and the tiles that are in like a typical hotel room were shaking out of the actual roof. So we had to tape the roof together so during our demo it wouldn't fall apart. Kind of bananas. So now I'll tell you why we're able and how we're able to do that. So as you mentioned earlier, we have this really cool thing called our PowerPort technology, which has been around probably for about 10 years or so. We wanted to make it better because we like to do crazy things. So we made our enhanced PowerPort. So what we ended up doing is a traditional port is a circle, let's say a hole cut into your speaker that lets air move in and out within the actual cabinet itself. Now, when you have that, traditionally ported speakers give off an effect or a distortion called chuffing. And what chuffing is when you're driving down the freeway and you roll your windows down a little bit and all of a sudden you hear that from the air trying to go in and out of the window from your car. It's the same experience that you're having except with a pair of speakers. So when you turn up your speakers really loud and you have a lot of low end, you'll hear a lot of coming out of the actual bass port itself, because it's not dispersing the air into the room properly. It's not a smooth transition. Now, with our power port and our enhanced power port, what we have done is we've taken a, let's say, a Hershey Kiss looking piece of plastic, for lack of a better term. And what we have done is we have put the tip of that Hershey Kiss within the actual port itself. So once it goes into the port, we're able to direct where we want the airflow to actually go when it's moving in and out of the cabinet itself. So you're able to actually disperse it into the listening area evenly and smoothly without getting any chuffing at all. And even when we do that, we're able to actually increase our low end frequencies by 3 dBs as well too. So what you're able to do is you're able to play your music or your movies lower and louder. That's the big takeaway for you. You don't have to worry about having the car driving down the freeway with the windows down type deal. It's lower and louder. So your bass is going to be crisp. It's going to be tight. You're not going to have any sort of distortions going on with it as well.
Yeah, and that's another area that I've observed when I listen to good speakers is that the bass really comes through nice and evenly. And I've also seemed to observe that, like, sometimes on cheaper speakers, I feel like you got to really crank them up to get any sort of bass, and on a good speaker, you get that same sort of effect even at lower volumes.
Absolutely. And I think one of the cool things that you really should look for or listen for in finding a good set of speakers is effortless bass. Because people can put, crazy amounts of low end, especially if it's an active speaker, so they can tune it that way. But if it's not tuned that way and it's a passive speaker, you want to make sure that the bass is just effortless and it just flows into the room and just kind of you just get enveloped into it, as opposed to it just being there. And they're really, really pushing hard on those woofers to really work hard.
Right. Very cool. Well, let's shift gears slightly here and talk about you alluded to this earlier in the conversation, the Atmos modules and 3D audio, and talk a little bit about the application there and how you guys are approaching that technology. Maybe give a little bit of a background in case there are listeners who aren't yet familiar. I know this is still a relatively new technology, and it's been around for a little while now, but not quite as adopted as something, as established as like a traditional 7.1 or 9. Whatever. So talk about 3D audio, what that is conceptually, and how you guys are fitting that into the Legend product line.
Of course. So let's say you're going to go to the movie theaters, right? And the typical movie theater is a 7.1 to 9.1 setup. But we don't think that's good enough. We want everybody to be immersed into true sound. And that's where Dolby Atmos has come into play. They have said, guess what? Your typical 5.7.9.1 setup is not good enough now. We have created something called the Atmos, which transports you into the middle of the action because you'll have sounds flying over your head. Now, the biggest thing that people need to realize is that whether you have a 5.1, a 7.1, a 7.2 system, whatever, The biggest thing is that it's the amount of space in between each speaker that doesn't have to lose the sound. So when you're listening to a 7.1, you're going to have surrounds, you're going to have your rears, and you're going to have your fronts as well too. So when you're doing that, it's essentially a smoother movement of sound to the listener's ear. Now, with Atmos, it makes it upfiring, whether you're going to have an upfiring soundbar or you're going to have ceiling speakers that fire downward, or what we have in our towers where we have the modules that will drop directly in. They will shoot up, they will reflect off the ceiling, and they will come right back down into the listening area. So from a standpoint from adapting to the times into 3D audio and all of that kind of stuff, this is Polk's first venture into it. But don't get me wrong, we have been doing years of research into it, as everybody has been. Everybody's been coming out with products. We've been wanting to perfect it. Now, the way that we were able to perfect it was, if you go look at a typical Atmos module today, you'll notice that the tweeter's on top and that the woofers on the bottom, the cones on the bottom. Now, that gives you a really, really tight sweet spot, and you're not really able to move around that much. So what we've done is we've altered that. We've changed it. We've flipped it on its head. So what we have is we have the tweeter on the inside of the speaker, on the Atmos module, so the closest to you, and the woofers on the outside. Now, what that does is it gives you a wider sweet spot. So when that sound gets shot up to the ceiling and reflects and comes right back down, instead of coming down in an itsy bitsy little 2-foot wide sweet spot, it's going to come down to 4 to 6 feet. So we've essentially almost doubled the sweet spot for you on these Atmos modules. And that's something that we have taken pride in. We've done 3-4 years worth of research on.
Very nice, very nice. And so the Atmos module is a drop-in module for the tower speakers, like basically on the top of the speakers, there it goes, or is it a separate product line that you have to get?
So we have created it, and like you hit it right on the head, it drops directly into the towers. So we actually have like a cap on top of the towers that you're able to unscrew. You take that off, you connect the Atmos module inside the speaker to a little connector, and then you drop it right on top of the speaker itself. So it integrates seamlessly. And the really cool thing is that you don't have an additional box on top of your speaker, nor do you have to worry about running cables down behind your actual speaker itself, because we've integrated that for you within the speaker already. So you just have to plug it into the binding post on top, and you're ready to go.
Very nice. Well, I think the next step for me is just to go listen to these things, because I'm my curiosity has been piqued. Like we were talking about before, I used to sell Polk way back in the Circuit City days, and I actually bought them because I mean, bang for the buck, they were the best thing we had in the store.
Yeah.
And which is looking on the website, it doesn't seem like that has changed very much. It seems like you still get a lot for what you're paying for out of a $200 or $300 pair of bookshelf speakers. It looks like a pretty good value. How can someone go listen to these?
Oh, I'm really happy you asked that question. So the best way to listen to them is we're holding listening events around the country. And to date, we've held about 9 listening events so far. And we update that on our website periodically. Whenever we have another retailer sign up, we try to get them to do a listening event. So we have a listening event coming up on December 14th at Worldwide Stereo in Pennsylvania. So if you're around there, go check out that one. But I encourage you guys to go to polkaudio.com/legend, and that will help give you guys and show you where the next listening event is, or to even locate a Legend dealer. These are only going to be sold at certain Legend dealers. They're not going to be sold at everywhere around the country. So Best Buy won't be taking these things. We are only selling to our specialty dealers on this one, because we want to make sure that our consumers are getting the full experience that they deserve when it comes to listening to these amazing speakers. And to leave you with this, it's Stu Lunzen. He's been with the company for 42 years, recently just retired. And this was his swan song. This was the last speaker that he had the opportunity to work on. And he came in and sat down right after Rocky Mountain Audio Fest. And we were all talking about it, and we were throwing around these terms loosely and stuff. But he did one demo in there, and he played one track. And he just looks at all of us in the room, the Polk guys, and he's like, wow, these are the best damn speakers that Polk has ever made. Hands down, bar none, best damn speakers Polk has ever made. So having the guy who is our lead acoustic research and development engineer. He's created crossovers and done all that kind of stuff to come in and say that this is the best speaker that we've ever made. And now we're able to share that with the consumers. I mean, it's one of those things where it really doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super stoked to be even just talking about these things and being in the same room as them. So if you're able to go out and listen to them, I highly recommend it. You won't regret it at all. And I'm not just saying that. It's changed my listening experience forever.
Awesome. Well, we've also got a lot of professionals in our audience as well as end users. And I know that many of them out there may also be interested in taking a look at that. I would imagine you've got a pretty healthy dealer network. And if anyone out in the audience is interested in providing these to their clients, it sounds like they'd be a great option and not exorbitantly expensive. Like the professionals out there especially will know that high quality speakers can get really, really expensive very quickly. And so, you talked about $6,000 a pair earlier for those L800s. And to a lot of people, that may sound like a really high price, but to most of the professionals out there in the audience who've done any sort of selling of high-end speakers, they know that's actually a very reasonable price for what sounds like a pretty high quality speaker. So we are running up against our time. As we do that, I'd love to zoom out a little bit and just talk about general guidance for people out there looking for speakers. I know one of the big things I was excited about coming into this interview was to learn a little bit about conceptually just how to think about speakers. It's such a mature category. There's thousands of options out there for people who are interested in shopping for one. How do you, as somebody who lives and breathes this stuff, what are some of the general sort of guiding principles that you're evaluating when you go out and listen to various speakers and really try to make a determination on the quality of what you're listening to?
Absolutely. So that's actually a great question. And when I first got in the industry, I asked the same question myself. How do I know what's a great speaker? What are the things that I need to look for? And the real answer to that is it's nothing. It's personal preference. It's all subjective. Some people like a speaker that has more bass. So those are like the Beats by Dre headphones that they have injected bass into the headphones and stuff. And some people like our European counterparts, they don't like a lot of bass at all. So you have other brands out there that specialize in that kind of stuff. But what we here in the States that we've really pride ourselves on, and actually Polk itself, is that we wanted to give it really let's say a rock and roll bass to a European mid-range to high frequency. Me personally, I like having a good amount of bass, even out with a smooth mid-range in really nice high frequencies. But like I said earlier, it's all subjective. Some people like really bright speakers, and I've heard a ton of speakers that are bright, and they just like, I can only listen to them for so long, So I like something for me personally. It's smoother. It's nice. That effortless bass that I was talking about earlier. It seems like that they belong in the room as opposed to standing out crazy and just pushing crazy sounds at you. Like to me, when I sit down and I listen to a speaker, if the speakers disappear and I can close my eyes and there's no speakers in the room, they've done their job. That's me personally.
Very cool. Yep, and I've heard that a lot. It really is subjective, and the best thing with speakers is like we talked about, find an opportunity to go sit in front of these, listen to them, close your eyes, allow yourself to be absorbed a little bit in that experience, and see if they connect with you. So, Bronson, thanks again. We really appreciate you taking some time to come on and join us. If there's anybody listening who might want to connect with you or the company and find out more, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Reach out to us on social media. So Instagram would be Polk Audio, and Facebook would be Polk Audio as well too. Go ahead, send us a message, slide into our DMs, and we'll be sure to get you guys the information that you're looking for.
Awesome. Well, again, we really appreciate you taking some time to come on the show and join us and talk about these speakers and speaker design in general. I know I learned a lot, so we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. No problem. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care, Bronson.
That was a pretty good interview here, Jason. I was clicking around on the Polk website here, and I am just like stunned by the amount of product that they have out these days. I mean, they're in just about every category that you can think of. And like I said, I was telling I'm not sure I said it on the show, but I was telling Bronson for sure. Polk had some of the best bang for the buck product out there when I was selling it back at Circuit City. in the dark ages.
That's right.
That's right. But man, they really have come a long way and have a really good product line for every price point that I can think of.
Yeah, I enjoyed learning a little bit about again, not just the speakers, but sort of who Polk is as a company. I think one of the things that I always grapple with when I even think about speakers is just it is a very mature category. There's so many options out there, and how do you start to distill it down? And I think even just learning about the culture and philosophy of a company like Polk helps you understand like what makes them unique and special. And every speaker company certainly has their story, and so I think that's part of the equation. All right, well, let's go ahead then and shift gears, Seth. We've got a great pick of the week this week from the Hub. I'll let you tee this one up.
Yeah, so this comes from Robert Spivak, kind of right after the last show last week. I think he posted this intersection of some things that I really like. One, networking gear, and it's got Ubiquiti networking gear. Two, wire management. And three, Jason, Lego. This is
Legos.
it's
a powerful combination.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. Somebody has taken the time to make a nice little Lego rack that holds, looks like a cable modem, a Ubiquiti cloud key, a Ubiquiti router, and a small Ubiquiti 8-port switch. And they also went the extra mile, Jason. If you see, they have little wire management things in there, like in the rack, built into it, where they can run their Cat 5s in, and everything looks nice and tidy. Looks great. I like it.
It's adorable.
Yeah, absolutely adorable.
It really is. It's a perfect word for it. This is a great find. I don't know where Robert found this one, but thanks for sending that over. Definitely head on over to our show notes at HomeTech.fm/283 if you're a fan of wire management, networking gear, and or Legos.
Absolutely.
This one's for you.
Yeah, if you have any feedback, questions, comments, picks of the week, or great ideas for the show, give us a shout. Our email address is at feedback@HomeTech.fm, or you can visit HomeTech.fm/feedback and fill out the online form, or you can just post them in the Hub and I'll find them there. It seems like a pretty good place to put them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's effective. All right, as we always like to do, we want to give a big thank you to everyone who supports the show, but especially to those of you who are able to financially contribute to our efforts through our Patreon page. If you want to learn more about that, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support and learn how you can support our efforts here for as little as $1 a month. Any pledge over $5 will give you a big shout out on air, but every single pledge will give you an invite to our private Slack chat, the Hub, where you and other supporters of the show can gather every day for all kinds of interesting conversations and fun pictures and whatnot surrounding the world of home technology.
Yep, and if you'd like to help out, but you can't support the show financially, we definitely appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes or positive rating in a podcast app of your choice. We're aiming for those 5 stars, though, nothing less.
That's right.
I mean, if you do have a complaint, let us know.
Let us know.
We'll fix it. Yeah, we do. We love to know.
Absolutely. All right, and the last thing we always want to mention is that HomeTech is a very proud member of the Technology.fm collective of podcasts. You can find other great shows like Home On, The Smart Home Show, and DTNS. Once again, that is Technology.fm. If you're a supporter of our show, head on over there and you'll find plenty more that you like.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, that wraps up the week of spending. I hope you've gotten all your holiday presents purchased. No.
Yeah. It certainly wraps up. It certainly wraps up the week of self-indulgent spending.
There you go.
We've still got some buying to do. Yeah, but we're making good progress. We definitely put a good dent in it. Very cool.
Yeah, we got off lucky too. Like we were able to find a couple good deals on things that she wanted. My daughter did this. We went and saw the Santa, right? The big man.
Yep.
And we were like, what do you want for Christmas? And she goes, I want a rainbow slinky and an Elsa doll. Done. Like, we're
lucky.
Yeah. No, hold on. So she goes up to Santa, and I've got video of this. I've got video evidence of this. He goes, what would you like for Christmas this year? And she says, I want a purple motorcycle.
She sandbagged you.
Totally sandbagged me. And then I will share with you a picture of her looking at me with the most impish grin, saying, and I could just see her saying in her head, like, I told him a purple motorcycle, and there's nothing you can do about it. It was the most wonderful time, I gotta say.
That's great.
Yeah, 3 years old.
That is really funny.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's the modern version of I Want a Pony.
Yeah.
Really.
Purple motorcycle.
You know,
it's got to happen now. Don't know how I'm gonna do it.
I don't know where they come up with it. That's really funny. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure if you found any Black Friday sales on purple motorcycles.
Did not find any deals.
I didn't see any.
No.
I'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, if you see a $17 purple motorcycle, let me know. Yeah, I hooked you up with the
Snap
Wise.
it up.
Or not with the Wise.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe send Wise a note. They'll make one for you.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds good.
All right, Seth. Well, I hope you have a great weekend, and look forward to connecting with you again next week.
All right. Have a good one, Jason.